I think everyone deserves to have a hobby that brings them joy and can be pursued no matter the situation. For me, that hobby is fishing. Unfortunately, my wife had a different hobby, inviting another man into our home and being unfaithful to me in our own bedroom. Eventually, after enough time had passed for me to gain some perspective, I saw that it was nothing more than sheer foolishness. It was simply someone who jumped to conclusions without verifying the facts and acted in a way that was inexcusable, believing her actions were justified. Even when she recognized her error, her pride prevented her from ever admitting she had anything to regret. I hope her pride keeps her comfortable at night and her ego keeps her from ever seeing what she really is, a shallow, foolish person focused only on her own interests. Did it hurt? Absolutely. Was I angry beyond words? Am I over it? Mostly. It still stings when I see a family with young children and think it could have been us, swinging our little girl around while she laughed or tossing a ball to our little boy and praising him like crazy when he caught it. Then again, I thank God, karma, or just plain good luck that it happened before we had children. I can't bear the thought of being a part-time father. We were young. Even now, 3 years later, I'm only 28 and she's 26. We married when she was 21 and I had just turned 23. We had our dreams, a house, kids, nice cars, the whole package, suburban utopia. Anita wasn't drop-dead gorgeous, but she was very pretty. She had reddish blonde hair, green eyes, stood at 5 feet 7 inches, and weighed 115 pounds, well distributed. When she put on makeup, wore her little black dress, and 4-inch heels, guys would lose their train of thought and stop watching where they were going. People said I was handsome in a rugged way. I was never a pretty boy, but I was decent looking, 6 feet 2 inches, 200 pounds, with almost no fat. I had good muscles from my job and the gym, light brown hair worn long, and gray eyes. We made a good-looking couple. We were also rednecks in every sense of the word, it was just the lifestyle we were raised in. We valued family highly and despised those who broke promises, especially wedding vows. Most of our friends had also married young, and they were already starting to split up, 3 divorces so far, mostly over money and cheating. We were quite fortunate. Just 3 days after graduating high school, I started working at a new company that specialized in manufacturing small car parts, mainly for German vehicles. The job paid well for someone with only a high school diploma, and I showed my appreciation by putting in my best effort. I learned how to operate every machine, took on all the overtime I could, and even assisted the mechanics until I could set up the simpler machines independently. I worked my way up to the point where I was primarily responsible for training new employees. My efforts didn't go unnoticed, particularly after a shift manager caught a new employee on her cell phone, which was only allowed during breaks. She was watching an instructional video I had made to ensure she understood her tasks. When the manager saw this, he checked with all the trainees, and they all had their own videos to refer to if they encountered any issues. I was summoned to the office, where the plant manager, shift manager, and an HR representative were waiting for me. As I wondered what mistake I had made, I braced myself for the reprimand. "So, Bud, yeah, a name fitting the stereotype, what do you have to say for yourself? Bonnie told us about your training video. You realize you broke company rules by using cell phones, right? What do you think we should do?" Initially scared, I then became angry. My philosophy had always been to go on the offensive when in doubt. To hell with them. I was just trying to increase company productivity. I think you should allow me to put the videos on the workstation computer so employees can access them using company-approved equipment. You have me training 3 to 4 people at a time, and it really helps them when I'm not around. If you think that's a bad idea, then go ahead and fire me. They were taken aback by my boldness, as they had only intended to rattle me a bit before suggesting the same idea. Once the situation calmed down, they gave me a $1 raise and promoted me to training coordinator. Nita was thrilled. She had been working full-time and taking a partial load of classes at the local college, aiming for her registered nurse degree. If she took a full course load, she could graduate in less than a year. After discussing it, Because we always talked over major decisions back then, she decided to go part-time to focus on school. I picked up even more overtime, and a year later, our families, siblings, and friends proudly watched her walk across the stage. She became the first college graduate on either side of the family. Even though I was a trainer, I still worked the third shift. This allowed me to come in early to train the second shift and stay late to work with the first shift. Plus, it maximized my time with my significant other. Nita looked into several entry-level positions, but the pay was low. She was repeatedly told that after gaining a couple of years of experience, her wages would increase. She spoke with a few employees at both locations and learned that they often let nurses go around the 2-year mark to hire cheaper replacements. One day, a friend had an accident, and we took her to the ER. The place was extremely busy and understaffed. Nita asked the nurse during a break why there weren't more staff on duty. The nurse replied, "We can't find anyone willing to work these hours, especially weekends at night. It's a shame because the pay is excellent." Nita applied, got an interview, and 2 weeks later, she was one of the third shift nurses on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The nurse was right, the pay was excellent for someone just starting out. She was scheduled for 30 hours a week but soon started working over 40. Between that and my job, we were making a lot of money. We decided not to change our lifestyle and saved the extra income. Our dream of owning a double-wide home and 4 acres was becoming more achievable. A year went by, and we learned to schedule our time to be together as much as possible. We usually had breakfast together if I didn't have to work late, and our time in the bedroom was as great as ever. We managed to sleep together at least part of every day. Life was good until I stumbled upon something that could potentially make our lives much better. I had a buddy, one of my closest friends, who was of Mexican descent and came to the country when he was 6. He struggled a bit in school, so Billy and I started helping him out since we all lived close to each other. He still had trouble with some words, and that's how he got his nickname. We were on the high school baseball team together. I played third base, he was the catcher, and Billy played first. During a game, a batter hit a ball into right field with the bases loaded. The outfielder made an incredible catch and threw the ball to Billy, who then tossed it to me with such force that it nearly knocked my glove off. I tagged off and threw a powerful shot to Juan, who blocked home plate and got the runner out. It was a triple play, a rarity in baseball. Juan tried to yell yippee, but it came out as zippy, which made us laugh and earned him his nickname. Despite his Hispanic heritage, he was as redneck as they come, right down to the tattered ball cap and a mouthful of red man. He even had a rebel flag tattooed on his bicep. He was an all-around good guy, worked hard, and helped his parents with the bills since he still lived at home. He didn't drink much, was well-mannered, and had just one vice, his hobby and passion for carp fishing. Carp fishing, to me, is evidence that people will find a way to gamble on anything. You'd visit a stocked pond, pay a fee, and start fishing. Although carp is hardly edible, the goal was to catch one that would win the hourly jackpot, the 24-hour jackpot, or the ultimate prize in carp fishing, the weight fish. A weight fish was a fish of a specific weight chosen randomly whenever a jackpot was hit. You paid an hourly fee to stay in the game, and if you were lucky enough to catch one that matched the chosen weight, say, 11 pounds 10 ounces, you won the jackpot. These jackpots could build up over weeks or even months until someone won. Often, the pot would grow to several hundred or even over $1,000. It sounds costly, and it is if you participate in every pot. There was even an hourly pot for the smallest carp caught, and it was easy to spend $100 or more on any given night. It was too expensive for me since I was trying to save for a house, but he was single, earned good money, and loved it. He even won occasionally, though I'm sure if you totaled his expenses, he ended up significantly in the red. Every serious carp fisherman had a unique bait recipe, and Zippy was no different. He would mix up various concoctions until the smell became so unbearable that his mother banished him from the kitchen. After winning a substantial jackpot, he purchased a small prefab building, which Billy and I helped him set up. Occasionally, we even assisted with his bait mixing, as long as we could tolerate the odor. The memory of his rotten chicken blend still makes me gag. Billy went to college to become a pharmacist, aiming to take over his dad's drugstore when he retired. One day, as we were sitting around, Zippy began talking about his latest bait concoction and how awful it smelled. Billy then started explaining how different compounds could interact quickly, leaving us both lost in his technical jargon. What I'm saying, boys, that if we can discover the perfect combination of ingredients that attracts fish, we could make a fortune. We pondered this for a while and decided to give it a shot. Initially, most of our experiments were complete failures. I secretly believe that our first few batches actually drove the fish to the other side of the pond. I researched carp extensively using the internet while Nada was at work. Surprisingly, there was a lot of information available. I learned that carp are scavengers but are attracted to heat, which I shared with the guys during our next meeting. Billy grinned, and the following week brought a legal over-the-counter liquid chemical from the pharmacy. This chemical reacted with the dough, heating it up. We tested it the next week. Well, Zippy and I weren't ready to invest any money into actual fishing yet, with mixed results initially. Zippy caught fish regularly, but then the dough started melting, and the fish took the bait without getting hooked. Despite this, he still won 3 jackpots that night: largest fish of the hour, largest fish of the night, and the heaviest fish. The payout was impressive, almost $700. The bait was successful enough to get him noticed, so he started rotating ponds, being careful not to fish in any one spot more than once every 3 weeks. Owners didn't like it if you won too often; other fishermen would see you and go elsewhere. Zippy's mom helped us figure out how to keep the bait on the line. She wouldn't go near the baited hook, but one night she and her husband sat with us in their backyard, listening to our complaints. Mom laughed, whispered something in Spanish to his father, and went into the house. "I'm giving you these for an experiment. If it works, you can buy your own." It was a pair of pantyhose with a small run. She saved them to hang her garlic and onions from her garden, tying a knot between each bulb, a very efficient storage system. It worked. The bait mostly stayed inside the little ball of pantyhose but was easily released when the carp bit. Once the carp was off the hook, Zippy would put fresh bait on and start again. It was still hit or miss. I suggested adding ground chicken livers and their blood to the mix. Billy suggested coffee grounds, something about chemical balance. Zippy came up with using yellow grits to bind everything together. Our success rates increased significantly with these additions. Then, as often happens with significant discoveries, we stumbled upon perfection by accident. Billy was assisting his parents with cleaning out a shed when his mother handed him a grocery bag filled with old cosmetics and perfumes to toss out at the dump. He had a bucket of bait in the back of his truck, and somehow, perhaps by sheer chance, some perfume spilled onto the mesh lid of his bait bucket. Keeping it in an old fridge to maintain its integrity, he then placed the bucket with the perfume-scented bait to warm up before heading straight to the carp pond. With a sigh, he attempted to mix the perfume thoroughly to diminish its scent. The fish went wild. Carp fishing is often unpredictable. You might get lucky with 2 quick bites at dusk, as it's primarily a nocturnal pursuit due to carp being less active in the daytime heat. However, this time was different. Billy got 5 bites within 45 minutes and secured the hourly prize throughout the night. He went on to win 2 more hourly prizes and clinched a 24-hour award for catching the largest fish. The owners began to take notice, prompting him to reel in his line and call it a night. The next morning, he called us in almost disbelief. We gathered at the shed, where he recounted the events, including the accidental use of perfume. A quick online search confirmed that the perfume was still available at a reasonable price. We decided to recreate the bait, estimating the amount of perfume used. Zippy took it to a pond across the county, and the results were astonishingly similar. He won 3 out of 4 hourly prizes and wisely decided to call it quits while ahead. We held a strategy meeting. I brought out a map showing all the carp ponds across 7 counties, surprised to find there were 51 in total. Zippy gave us a brief tutorial, taking us to a pond during the day when it was deserted. Billy and I had equipped ourselves with a couple of Zebco 33 classic reels on 5.5 feet rods each. As the rules allowed only 2 rods in the water at once, it was a versatile setup, nothing like the expensive gear others used, and it provided good camouflage, making us appear like clueless locals, which in many ways we were. We quickly decided never to visit the same pond simultaneously and to move on after each fishing session, waiting at least a month before returning. We didn't want to establish any patterns or attract too much attention. On my first night out, I must have amused the others because it seemed like I couldn't do anything right. Despite that, after 7 hours, I had won 4 hourly prizes, 3 for the biggest catches and 1 for the smallest, just shy of $600. Not bad for a night's work. Everyone chalked it up to beginner's luck. Billy didn't fare as well but still managed to win $400, and Zippy brought in $500. That was almost $1,500 in cash. We pooled it all in a coffee can in the shed. For weeks later, we had accumulated $6,300, and the can was filling up nicely. We agreed to wait until the end of the fishing season to divide it among ourselves. We also hid our bait by placing it in containers with carp bait after discarding the original one. One morning, when I came in late, Nita teased me, saying, "You smell like you were rummaging through the trash with a girl of easy virtue." She knew about our experiments because I shared everything with her. I laughed, took a shower to freshen up, and when I returned, I found Nita on the table, beckoning me with her eyes. "Go have breakfast, big boy." I readily complied. After that, I turned it over on the table and gave it my all. It was an unforgettable experience. "I'm sorry, baby," I muttered, rising unsteadily. "One day you're going to drive me crazy." She grinned with satisfaction and then hugged me. "Well, you know where to go. Let's take this to the bedroom. I've got an appetite." Instead of consuming calories, we burned them off and finally fell into a restful sleep. Strangely enough, we woke up at almost 6 o'clock. Nita smiled mischievously and pulled me towards her. "Oh my God, it's time for dinner." It took us an hour to get out of bed and 45 minutes to take a shower together. Dying of hunger, we ordered 2 pizzas and ate one whole and the other almost entirely. Life was wonderful. Then our ambition grew. As the weather cooled and most places shut down for months, only to reopen with the warmth, we decided to seize every opportunity while it lasted. We fished every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Unbeknownst to us, we were under observation. Many pond owners exchanged stories, and Billy and I gained notoriety for our beginner's luck. Zippy also attracted attention as a Mexican among a crowd of pale, overweight locals, especially since he consistently outperformed them. Tensions were rising at home around that time, too. Nita was starting to resent my prolonged absences. I kept my weekly earnings a secret, planning to surprise her with a stack of cash at the end of the season and suggest we start looking for a new home. After discussing it with Billy and Zippy, we agreed to take a week off since Billy's wife was also voicing complaints. We were still testing different types of bait, mostly experimenting with various perfumes, so I often returned home smelling of a new fragrance. Later, everything unraveled when Nita went to Walmart for her weekly shopping and bumped into a friend who happened to be the cashier in her checkout line. They caught up on their families and friends, and then Jane surprised Nita by leaning in and sniffing, "What's that?" "Just checking out your scent today. Bud was here yesterday for his shopping. It's amazing that you can move at all, choosing perfumes and tights. I'd love to hear what goes on in your house." Nita didn't know how to respond, so she simply grinned and nodded. I had told her we had found a method to keep the bait on the hook, but I hadn't gone into specifics. When she got home, she searched the entire house looking for my stash, unaware it was all at the bait. The means of protection were suddenly put into action. Zippy mistakenly grabbed the wrong bucket and only realized it at the pond. In a panic, he called Billy, who lived nearby, instructing him to bring an extra bucket before heading to their fishing spot. After dropping off the bait, Billy discovered they had forgotten the pantyhose. Zippy was ready to give up, but Billy grinned and returned to his truck, producing a package of 6 protective equipment. "Since we're here, might as well give it a try," Billy said with a grin. It took 3 attempts before they figured it out, tightly securing the condom to the hook and making small cuts around the edges. Surprisingly, it worked much better than the pantyhose, lasting longer. Soon, each of them had a pair of tights and protective equipment in their truck's glove compartments. Consumed by jealousy, Nita meticulously searched the house before my return, then waited until I was asleep to inspect the truck. Thinking about it, I can only imagine her emotions when she opened the dashboard and found 2 pairs of tights and a package of protective equipment, 2 of which were missing. It didn't help that both pairs had been worn by Billy's wife, who had given us a few after hers got snagged. Nita could tell they had been used. My girl had always struggled with a fiery temper, constantly battling to rein it in, but today she unleashed her demons. I woke up to find all 4 tires on the truck slashed, 1 rearview mirror missing, and my fishing rods broken in the driveway, clearly run over by her car. The reels were flattened, and she left me a note on the bathroom mirror scrawled in lipstick, "You idiot. Just so you know, 2 people can play this game." I contacted her mother, her friends, and even checked with the hospital. No one had seen her, but one friend mentioned she had called. "What did she say?" I asked. "Nothing." I'd repeat, "If it's true, you better run. If not, find her fast." That didn't ease my anxiety. I kept trying to reach her all night, even leaving work early to search, borrowing a truck and calling during breaks. At 4 a.m., I gave up and told my supervisor I was leaving. He seemed to agree. "You've been off all night. I hope whatever it is isn't contagious." On the way home, I stopped by Walmart and bought 2 new 33 classic reels and 2 ugly stick rods that can be bent in half without breaking. I needed to go fishing this weekend anyway. If I could calm Nita down, maybe talking to her about money would help. I might even be able to convince her to come with me and see how I spend my evenings while she's at work. Perhaps this will ease her anxiety. I noticed a car parked there, but people visiting apartments often park incorrectly. However, this car stood out among compact cars and old trucks. I was relieved to see Nita's car and, holding the bags in one hand and the fishing rods in the other, I balanced and unlocked the door. It swung halfway open, making enough noise for anyone to hear. "That's it, kid, right here. Do you like this married girl, big boy?" I recognized Nita's voice, accompanied by a male grunt. A reasonable person would have investigated before reacting. A thoughtful person would have gathered evidence and taken decisive action. A coward could turn away or sneak in unnoticed to observe. A hot-tempered person would start a fight right here and now. I have never been distinguished by intelligence or logical abilities. The last guy who called me weak now gets a daily reminder that it wasn't his best idea. Being a redneck, I tend to react aggressively. I burst into the bedroom, tore the door off its hinges, and found my wife in bed with some jerk. Her face was pale, then turned red. "How does it feel, huh? Being betrayed? Sucks, doesn't it?" With a flick of my hand, I threw her off the bed. I recognized this guy. He was an emergency room doctor known for caring for women. My wife mentioned that she couldn't stand him, and before that, he had ruined 2 marriages. Apparently, he ignored the warnings of the hospital administration about married women. He stood up, trying to wriggle out. He practiced fitness and showed off his black belt. "Take it easy, man." She attacked me. "What can I do? If you can't satisfy her, I'll take my things and leave. Looks like the party is over for today. Calmly step aside, and you will not be harmed. You don't want to be beaten up by a guy who just slept with your wife. That would be too much. Keep your dignity and move on." He must have sensed my surprise because he immediately assumed a defensive stance. In my rage, I forgot for a moment that I was still clutching the fishing rods in my hand. I remembered the night on the shore of the pond when I witnessed a guy struggling with a huge fish. His friend, who was helping him, was caught off guard when the line snapped, and throwing the rod back, it hit his friend right on the cheek. Anyone interested in causing pain should consider using a fishing rod. They'll probably throw away all their whips. He hadn't expected this. After all, who uses a fishing rod as a weapon? Perhaps I was experienced or just lucky because my first swing landed right on his instrument. A piercing scream escaped him, and he instinctively covered it with his hand, so the next blow landed on his knuckles. He collapsed to the floor. "Buddy, stop right now or I'll pull the trigger. I swear to God, you have no right to behave like that after what you've done." She was holding my Python Colt, the same model as Rick's in The Walking Dead, loaded with .357 rounds. My rage evaporated instantly. "So it's not enough for you that you've been having fun in our house, in our bed? Now you're threatening me with a gun? I hope whatever provoked you was worth it because it's over between us." For the first time, uncertainty flashed across her face before she frowned. "I'll decide for myself when it's over. It was just a warning, but if you don't obey, this will happen much more often. Now step aside and let him go. Consider yourself lucky that I don't demand an apology." I looked at him trying to hide behind the door, then back at her, and a smile spread across my face. "Go to hell. Come on, pull the damn trigger." Her eyes widened, which was probably the last thing she expected me to say. I didn't hit the jerk again, but I helped him get to the door, pushing him every time he tried to get up. I left the door open, and a large crowd gathered outside, attracted by the shouting and commotion. However, when Nita fired, they quickly dispersed. I didn't feel anything. "Next time I'll hit the target," she screamed, pointing the gun at me again. I looked up and noticed a hole in the ceiling. Fortunately, all duplexes were single-story. A concerned neighbor called the police when the commotion started, and they were just getting out of their car when she started threatening. They drew their weapons and instantly hid behind their car. It must have been quite a scene. Now she was standing on the street holding a hefty pistol in her hand. Her accomplice, also without clothes, tried to crawl to his car. When the shot rang out, he covered his head, not knowing who was shooting, and begged me not to touch him, apologizing for his connection with my wife. I was fully dressed and held my hands up in surrender. I think they've been watching surveillance footage for months, focusing on her. They yelled at Nita, she yelled at me, and that jerk was shouting apologies, begging me not to shoot him. She hesitated, glancing between the cops and me. Suddenly, she gestured toward the officers, and I instinctively grabbed her, knowing they were ready to take drastic action. She released the gun, and I tossed it toward the police before restraining her on the ground. Within moments, we were both in handcuffs. In the end, we all ended up in jail. I was accused of assaulting a doctor and domestic aggression for slapping Nita. She faced charges for assaulting a police officer with a deadly weapon, making threats, indecent exposure, and firing a gun within city limits. They would have charged the doctor too if they'd found grounds, but eventually, he was released. His wife had to collect him and bring clothes. She filed for divorce, naming Nita in the complaint and attempting to sue the hospital, so it all went public. I agreed not to press charges against her for threatening me with a weapon in exchange for her dropping the assault charge, though reluctantly on her part, to avoid further publicity. The doctor could have made trouble for me but wisely disappeared. It took his wife nearly a year to locate him working in a clinic abroad. While she got most of their assets, he had to pay substantial retroactive child support. All things considered, I narrowly escaped disaster, pun intended. The DA decided not to oversee this chaotic affair further and let us go. Nita underwent anger management and completed 200 hours of community service for pointing a gun at the police. Zip and Bill arrived to assist me, using some of our fishing earnings to bail me out. I declined to bail out Nita, so her family had to come and retrieve her. This delay allowed me to return home, gather most of my belongings, and leave town. I didn't hear from Nita for 3 weeks. I assumed she was waiting for me to apologize. When that didn't happen, she called me, dripping with sarcasm and demanding I return. "As touching as your invitation is, I'll have to decline. Don't contact me again, Anita. We're done. Whatever suspicions you had, I never betrayed you. I don't care what you heard or imagined. I can't trust you anymore, and I'd never feel safe if I came back. She realized she was in trouble when I called her Anita instead of Nita. Her tone shifted immediately. Look, maybe I made a mistake. Why don't you come home and we'll talk this over like adults? No, actually, let me think about it. No, hold on while I give it serious thought. Okay, not just no, but hell no. I hung up and avoided the phone until the following day. I knew she was supposed to be served at 2 o'clock, and by 2:30, my phone was ringing. It was her, naturally, but instead of making demands and threats, she was in tears. I gently expressed my regret that things had come to this point but affirmed my decision not to reconcile with her. I'm sorry, Anita, truly I am, but I can't go back, and I can't overlook how easily our marriage was disregarded. This is the only path forward. Please don't contest it. She resisted, delaying the process as much as possible. Eventually, the judge grew impatient. I never attended any of the proceedings. I couldn't see the purpose. Perhaps I should have, because the judge ordered us to undergo marriage counseling, 1 session individually and 10 together. I insisted that if, after counseling, I still desired the divorce, it would proceed unimpeded. If not, I would defy the order and face the consequences. I appeared before the judge, explaining my rationale. He looked at me with a sense of pity, realizing the futility of prolonging the matter, but he acquiesced, and Anita agreed to comply. She selected her therapist carefully. He was a young man in his 30s. I had a question right from the start of our private session: how long have you been doing this? He didn't appear surprised and smiled. Longer than you might think. This is my 6th year. Are you any good at it? I think he was taken aback by that. He straightened up a bit. Quite good, actually. One of the best. My success rate in reconciliations is among the highest in the state. I frowned. What if I told you I'm not here for reconciliation? I'm only here because it seems like my best shot at moving forward with the divorce. If you think you can convince me to reconcile with my wife, you'll have a hard time. The moment I sense any bias or agenda that isn't mine, we're done. I checked your record too and was surprised to find 4 complaints, 3 from men and 1 from a woman, saying you prioritize numbers over genuine resolution. Oh, would you look at the time? See you next Thursday at 6 sharp. As the session ended, he looked as stunned as a fish I once caught, gasping in the net. The initial 2 meetings were challenging. He instructed us to sit close together on a love seat facing him, but I opted for a recliner instead. I noticed his concealed frown. The entire first hour revolved around her and the small mistakes she made, as did the second when she continued in the same vein. I took out the newspaper I had brought and began reading. Both of them looked at me in astonishment. What are you doing? He asked. If I wanted repeats, I'd watch old TV shows. For 2.5 hours, you've let her ramble without pushing her to focus. If that's your approach, fine, go ahead. I'll sit here quietly and read. He was visibly annoyed, his eyes and body language giving him away. But if you don't? I cut him off. We're not friends. Call me Mr. Hart if you're addressing me. I don't use your first name, do I? He seemed puzzled, which surprised me. Had he not been listening? Sorry, Mr. Hart. I'm just trying to build rapport with you to make things smoother, but you need to engage or I'll inform the judge. I shrugged. Tell him my lawyer thoroughly reviewed the paperwork. It says I must attend, not participate. So why don't you refocus on the real issue here, how to prepare that? That effectively concluded the session. Well, he informed the judge during our meeting that I should at least make a sincere effort. Let me be clear, he said, I'm not suggesting you have to take her back, that's entirely up to you. After our sessions, I'll respect whatever decision you make. However, it might benefit you to hear about how things deteriorated so quickly. It could be useful for any future relationships. He was quite astute, I suppose that's why he was a judge. So, I did some research. My lawyer taught me that, and I came prepared for the next session. I handed a sheet of paper to both Anita and the counselor. Bob, what's this? It's a log of all the times I was fishing when she suspected I might be up to something else. Those guys keep meticulous records, so you'll see when I arrived, when I left, or at least when I cashed in my last catch. And if you think I was having romantic rendezvous at a carp pond, you've clearly never been to one. The smell isn't exactly conducive to romance. I observed her. Maybe I should have clarified something about protective equipment and tights, I said. But honestly, I didn't see the necessity. You only half listened when I shared what I was up to. Anyway, you had your own interests, nights out with friends, shopping, all that. Did I suspect you of cheating? No. Maybe you got a bit too close while dancing or let things go a little too far with hands wandering, but I trusted you. So I didn't check up on you. I didn't search your car or look for motel receipts. I didn't snoop through your personal things to find evidence. If I had any doubts, I would have talked to you. Why couldn't you do the same? We could still be together, looking at houses, talking about starting a family. Instead, here we are, with a stranger airing our grievances. Well, you are. At least the less I speak, the calmer I feel. Ultimately, this is our private matter, and I really resent that we're here at all. It was the most I had spoken in our sessions, and they were so taken aback it took them a moment to respond. Then my phone chimed. Oh, look, time's up. See you next week. I was out the door and gone before they could react. I sensed a shift. The next time we returned, something had changed. Anita met my gaze. No tears in her eyes. You spoke last week, now it's my turn, I nodded. Looks like we might be making some progress here, I thought. I now realize we can never reconcile. I've shattered any chance of that, but I need to express some of my thoughts. You were an exceptional husband. You rarely drank, had a steady job, and were faithful. I was so proud of you. At my workplace, most of the younger nurses were either divorced or having affairs. I felt fortunate that we shared the same schedule. Many of them were cheating in retaliation for their husbands' weak escapades. I used to boast about you all the time. Then you started spending more time fishing. You weren't home when I was, and despite initially trusting you, doubts grew as you fished more. My friends noticed too, he's seeing someone else, they'd say. A week before everything fell apart, a friend told me she saw you with another woman, laughing and hugging. I wanted to confront you then, but I was scared of the truth. Later, Jane mentioned perfumes, protective equipment, and tights. What was I supposed to think? I've always struggled to control my temper, but this time I couldn't. I wanted to hurt you as you hurt me, so I ended up with Dr. SAS, someone available and willing. I never intended to tell you, it was my secret way of coping with your betrayal. Then you unexpectedly came home early, and everything unraveled. You weren't supposed to be there, you were never meant to find out. I was so ashamed until my anger took over. Only your slap brought me back to my senses. Even then, as you were thrashing him with your fishing rod, I knew it was over between us. I only grabbed your gun from the nightstand to prevent you from killing him, but I admit my anger lingered, and I was tempted to pull the trigger when you stared into my eyes and commanded me to pull the trigger. In that moment, I realized. I no longer held any importance to you. Instantly, the rage began to dissipate. I was still bewildered when the police arrived. I even contemplated firing in their direction, hoping they would end my suffering by killing me. She paused, wiped her tears, and took a sip of water. I started to speak, but she motioned for me to stay silent. Then we were all arrested. My heart broke again when you refused to bail me out and left. Things got even uglier when the doctor's wife got involved. When she sued the hospital, everything came to light. My friends and my family suspected something had happened, but now they knew the whole story. It was an incredibly lonely time for me. You were gone, my friends were gone, and even though the hospital kept me because I was a skilled nurse, the warmth I once felt from my job had vanished. So here I am. I messed up, and although I would do anything to make it right, I know you are a man of strong convictions, like something out of the Old Testament, and I've always admired that about you. I've made my decision. Today, I'm ending our sessions. I give up. Before I could respond, she was out the door and gone. I turned to the counselor. Should I go after her? Only if you're worried she might harm herself. Otherwise, I'd suggest letting her be. She's already begun her healing journey. It's best to respect her space. We ended our marriage. She was surprised by how much I had saved for our house. She had a rough estimate but always relied on me, so she didn't stress about it. I ensured she received her fair share. Naturally, we had already left our previous apartment. The landlords weren't pleased with the damage caused. I found a cozy studio nearer to my job, which suited me perfectly. Anita moved in with another nurse, explaining it was more cost-effective and she disliked being alone at home. Everyone encouraged me to start dating again, but I wasn't emotionally prepared. I was wounded and resentful, and I lashed out at a few women until I recognized that I didn't like the person I was becoming. That's when I sought help. This time, my counselor was a woman. Initially hesitant, she reassured me until I felt at ease. I confided in her about myself and Anita, and how I had been treating women in general. I think maybe I'm becoming a misogynist, one of those guys who hate women, I said. She chuckled. I don't believe that's the case, or you wouldn't have come to see me. I would have been seen as just another woman trying to disrupt your life. Here's what I think: despite your divorce, you still love your wife. I also believe that as much as you wish to reconcile, it's not possible right now. Your behavior towards women is a reflection of your pain. Life will improve, though it may not seem like it now, and you're too much of a gentleman to continue reacting this way towards women. Soon, you'll realize they haven't wronged you and treat them accordingly. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss? I visited her 6 times. I learned that I didn't always communicate effectively and that I still had some growing up to do. These were things I acknowledged and worked on improving. She also encouraged me to be honest with whoever I ended up with, sharing my story and flaws and hoping she could accept them. If she loved me, it would be sufficient. I became more composed. 4 months later, my boss summoned me to his office. There was a man I didn't recognize, who turned out to be a vice president. After the introductions and some small talk, he got to the purpose of his visit. We have 11 locations in this country, and this one boasts the highest efficiency rate among them all. Being the discerning person that I did some digging, and every discussion pointed to you. I'm facing significant challenges with our plant in Alabama, and I'm not entirely satisfied with the performance of our Kentucky facility. We're interested in offering you a role as a traveling trainer. You'd be sent to any of our facilities needing assistance to assess and suggest improvements. Naturally, there would be a substantial salary increase, along with provided housing and transportation. Moreover, bonuses will be tied to how quickly you can turn things around. This initiative is experimental, and we're extending this opportunity to only 2 individuals. The other person is based in California and will oversee operations west of the Mississippi, while you will cover everything eastward. Take some time to consider it, and if you're interested, we can proceed with the trial. 4 days later, I boarded a plane bound for Alabama and was greeted at the airport by a man driving a company truck. We made our way to the short-term apartment complex that would serve as my residence for the next 10 weeks. I quickly mastered the mechanical and training aspects of the job, resulting in an immediate increase in production. However, the work environment left much to be desired. Managers lacked trust in their staff and maintenance team. The supervisor of the second shift was particularly challenging, questioning every decision, enforcing unnecessary changes, slowing down production, and blaming the workers. 7 weeks into the job, the vice president who had recruited me called. I see progress is being made. Good job. However, it's not as significant as I had hoped. Any issues I should know about? I hesitated, and he noticed. I didn't hire you to report on others, but if there's anything hindering efficiency, you need to inform me. whether it's personnel or equipment. It's part of your job description. Since you now report directly to me, you're outside the regular chain of command, so there won't be any repercussions. Understand? Yes, sir. Well, changes are needed, especially on the second shift. The environment is confrontational, and productivity is suffering. Management needs to step back from micromanaging. If employees know their roles, trust will yield better results. There was a pause before he chuckled. I did ask for honesty. Let me see what I can do. 2 days later, the second shift manager headed to my main plant to observe operations for 2 weeks as part of a new cross-training experiment. To my surprise, I was appointed interim manager. Production increased by 177% in the second week. Although the manager returned with a renewed perspective, he reverted to his previous ways within a month. By the second month, I was reassigned for 3 weeks to train the new manager. Afterwards, I spent 6 weeks in Kentucky. The team there was quite competent, and improvements came swiftly. Rumors spread that I had the boss's ear, and those who didn't cooperate faced consequences, making it easier for me to accomplish tasks. My bank balance was growing rapidly. Once all essential expenses were covered, there wasn't much left to spend on luxuries. I estimated that within a year, I could seriously consider buying a house. The week after I returned from Kentucky, Billy and Zippy invited me to a business meeting. Due to a fallout from the divorce, we were barred from local fishing spots, so Zippy had to travel farther for his fishing trips. As usual, Zippy's mom had a suggestion: since you can't earn from fishing anymore, why not sell the bait instead? You won't have to spend nights by a smelly pond, just sit back and watch the money roll in. In gratitude, we named the bait after her suggestion. With the help of a lawyer recommended by Billy's dad, we secured the formula and started our business. Mama Rosa's magic featured her picture on the packaging, which she jokingly criticized. Is this how I'm going to become famous? My face will be on a bucket of bait. Initially, we began small, supplying a few local bait shops and gaining approval from some carp ponds. Business started slowly but soon gained momentum to the point where demand outstripped supply. Our lawyer arranged for a larger facility, and we sourced mixers from a bakery supplier capable of handling large batches. We bought grits, chicken livers, and perfume in bulk. Acquiring coffee grounds proved tricky until Billy came up with the idea of donating coffee to shelters in exchange for their used grounds. The other ingredients remained a closely guarded secret, mixed by Zippy in his old baited and delivered to our factory in plain bags. We transitioned to running 2 shifts to meet demand, but even that wasn't enough. When we discovered our product worked just as well on catfish, our sales skyrocketed. The turning point came when Walmart approached us. Despite hearing daunting stories about doing business with them, we politely declined their offer to expand and produce 5 times our current output, which shocked them. Instead, we secured a contract with a major sporting goods store for our entire product line over 2 years, with a guaranteed order 3 times our usual production. The contract allowed a 3-month grace period for us to scale up. We acquired a new building and larger mixers, installing 160 mixers capable of 500-pound batches. Zippy had left his previous job long ago to become our manager, and his mother joined us too, leaving her position as an office manager at a law firm to oversee our business operations. Now earning double her former salary, as an LLC, ownership was divided. Zippy and Billy each owned a third. I held 20% as a silent partner, and Mama Rosie owned the remaining 10%, which not only secured her commitment but also ensured our success. It had been 18 months since I last visited home, having spent the past 8 months moving between different plants as required. I even had the opportunity to work at a facility just outside of Kansas City. Within the company, I was known for my love of barbecue, collecting t-shirts from various places I'd visited. I savored a mustard-based sauce in Alabama and a spicy, thick brown sugar tomato style in Kentucky. Each state offered its own unique blend, often claiming theirs as the best in the world. Just a short drive away, I decided to visit what I considered my favorite place on earth. Sporting my new Kansas City t-shirt, the owner nearly kicked me out until I explained it was a freebie and assured him everyone knew his place was the ultimate. He relented, letting me stay, and even gave me a shirt on the condition I wear it next time I visited another joint out of town and send him pictures. Then I noticed her walk in. Anita didn't see me, giving me a chance to study her closely. She looked thinner, with much shorter, blonder hair than I remembered, which suited her tan. She'd always enjoyed the sun. She was accompanied by 2 girls and another guy. Instead of letting things get awkward when she spotted me, I approached after they had settled down. She had been laughing, but her expression sobered when she glanced up. "I didn't want to interrupt you or your friends, Anita. I just didn't want things to get awkward when you saw me, so I decided to come over and say hello. That new hairstyle suits you, by the way. It looks great. Enjoy your meal." She lightly touched her hair, smiling faintly. "Thank you, bud. You're looking good yourself. Travel seems to be treating you well." "Well, when you're away as much as I am, it's a choice between spending time in bars or the gym, and I was never much of a drinker. I'll let you get back to your meal now. It's really nice to see you again, Anita." Her eyes widened when I used her nickname, and she nodded as I returned to my table. 3 minutes later, someone approached me. It was her, holding her plate. "Can I join you at your table? We were planning to take the food to go, but I think I'd like to stay a bit longer." I stood up and pulled out a chair for her. We ate and had a meaningful conversation. She surprised me by revealing she had left the hospital and found a job in an office with regular hours. The pay wasn't as high, but she finally gained the experience everyone had wanted from her at the beginning, so things were going well for her. Another surprise came when she mentioned she was seeing a therapist monthly to manage her anger issues and stay focused. I reciprocated by sharing my own therapy experiences, which caught her off guard. Eventually, Anita asked the question that had been on her mind since she saw me, "Are you seeing anyone?" I chuckled, surprising her. "Not seriously. It's hard to start a relationship when I'm away so often. I don't want to subject anyone to a part-time relationship, it wouldn't be fair." She nodded. "Same here. With my old schedule, dating wasn't really an option outside of work colleagues, and, well, you know." She trailed off a bit embarrassed. I surprised her by taking her hand. "You don't have to dwell on the past. Let's focus on now. You have regular hours now, so there's plenty of time to date." She seemed reluctant to admit she had dated a few men. I didn't expect her to become a nun, though, she added, noting that she hadn't found anyone worth more than 3 dates. Changing the subject, she asked about my shirt, and the conversation turned to tales of my travels and exotic foods I had tried. Barbecued alligator wasn't bad, armadillo, less so, ostrich was quite good, as was mutton from Kentucky. She made faces and giggled as I described them until she suddenly checked her watch. "Oh no, I'm late. I have to go. Thanks for spending time with me, bud. It was really nice to see you." Before I could react, she leaned down and kissed me on the cheek. "Call me next time you're in town." I wouldn't mind at all. After she left, I glanced down and noticed a business card lying there. It bore her office details with her number scribbled on the back. I pondered over it briefly before tucking it away in my wallet. We occasionally saw each other when I was home. I think she wanted us to get closer, but I couldn't reciprocate. She eventually gave up and started dating another nurse from a different office. Despite still traveling and going to the gym, I had developed a new interest in taking online classes. I aimed to advance beyond just being a traveling trainer. When my boss discovered this, he had the company fund my classes, considering it an investment. Having previously attended a community college, I earned my degree in business management in 2.5 years. Receiving the diploma by mail reminded me painfully of not having someone to share my achievement with. Then, my boss summoned me to corporate headquarters. He introduced me to my replacement, praising my work but understanding the challenges of constant travel for a young man. With my newly acquired degree, he proposed a career move. The manager at my local facility was retiring, and the production manager was advancing, leaving a management vacancy. He offered me the opportunity to fill this role with a time frame to decide. He also hinted at future opportunities, emphasizing his preference for promoting internally. During the interim, Jones would accompany me on my travels as we always needed more trainers. After careful consideration, I accepted the offer. I was weary of life on the road. While it had its moments, I longed for the stability of waking up under the same roof every day. I almost fell in love. She was from Alabama, a striking red-haired woman with a figure reminiscent of my ex. She worked as a production planner, and our paths often crossed at work. Our conversations turned to hobbies, and she confessed her passion for fishing, showing off her own boat. She grinned as she told me how she acquired it. Her husband, a serial fraudster and avid fisherman, owned a first-class Ranger bass boat, which she insisted on during the divorce process just to annoy him. It wasn't used for a year until she decided to try it out and fell in love with fishing, particularly catching a monster catfish in a nearby lake. Her personal best was 28 pounds. Out of curiosity, I asked what kind of bait she preferred. That was before we partnered with the sporting goods store, so we were still locals. On my next visit, we agreed to go boating with her on the weekend. I brought 5 pounds of our bait with me. Catfish fishing, like carp fishing, is most productive at night. We went out to sea a few hours before sunset and leisurely explored. Jared, the bard, and Molly caught my glances at the girls on the other boat and teasingly took off her t-shirt. I was speechless for a moment. "Do you think you can keep an eye on the boat now?" she joked. "Of course," I replied with a grin. We came to the entrance of a small bay, one of her favorite fishing spots. After anchoring the boat and throwing the rods into the water, we opened several bottles of beer. 40 minutes and 3 beers later, she became worried. There were luxurious, huge fishing chairs on the boat, and to my surprise, she climbed onto my lap. "I think we should take this chance to get to know each other better, shouldn't we?" she suggested. I couldn't wait either, although I protested without much enthusiasm. "What about the fish?" I asked. "Forget about the fish. The fishing lines are set, we'll notice if they bite." I definitely did. It was a pleasant pastime. As soon as we finished, she broke out of my arms to fight with the rod. "Get the net! Get the net!" It took her another half hour to get the fish close enough to the boat to catch it with the net. I took one look at her, dropped the net, and grabbed the boat hook. When she had the fish secured, we added a few more so it wouldn't escape. "Damn, what a huge thing! It must be 50 pounds, I exclaimed. She looked down and grinned. "Oh, I'm sorry, baby, but I promise I'll make it up to you." In the next 90 minutes, we caught 8 fish, the smallest of which weighed only 19 pounds. We cruised slowly to a marina known for its weighing capability. The guys were amazed when Molly revealed the fish she wanted weighed 8 in total, with the largest tipping the scales at 69 pounds, setting a new lake record. They carefully housed this particular fish in a specially designed live well until state officials could verify its weight. Over the next 2 days, the marina attracted a lot of attention as people came to admire the fish. Molly received coverage in local and state newspapers, an article in a state wildlife magazine, and even a television interview. As her fishing companion, I got a mention. When asked about her bait, she playfully mentioned it was a commercial one available everywhere, leaving others to guess. She certainly livened up our boat trips with her humor and ensured we had some fun before getting down to fishing. She was witty, alluring, a great conversationalist, and incredibly attractive. I was almost ready to ask for a more serious relationship when she canceled a date. Later, I spotted her at a restaurant with another man, their affectionate gestures revealing they were more than acquaintances. I didn't see her at all the following week at work, she had taken some time off. The following month, she pursued me eagerly, admiring my laid-back demeanor. She sighed, "You caught me, didn't you?" "Yes, but don't worry about it," I replied. We hadn't committed. "I would have preferred to hear it from you, but it's fine. Listen. I apologize, Brad. Have you ever noticed how many guys named Brad seem to be associated with cheating? Someone should write a paper on that. Brad is my steady boyfriend. He's been abroad on a contract for nearly a year, and he unexpectedly got some time off. We'll probably end up getting married eventually. He understands my needs, and I know he won't go without either. So we made an agreement: what we do or who we see while we're apart is none of our business, and we don't ask. You're a lot of fun, bud, and your techniques are almost as good as Brad's. I'd like to keep seeing you. His contract doesn't end for another 8 months. I politely declined her offer, while he didn't seem to mind that I did, so we resumed our friendship. I wished her well, but we didn't have much contact afterward, except for our fishing trips where I helped her catch those impressive monsters she kept reeling in. She attracted a lot of attention from guys on the water who were curious about her success compared to theirs. Some even searched her boat, but she kept her secret bait locked away in a small fridge in her dad's garage. Eventually, she broke her own state record by landing a 77-pound monster. She sent me a photo of herself with the fish, which was taller than she was. There was a guy next to her smiling, Brad, I think. They looked happy together. She continued to win several tournaments until her special bait started selling in local stores, and she lost her competitive advantage. By the time I returned home, I had decided to settle down for good. Using some of my savings, I bought a charming house nestled in the countryside, set on 8 acres with a lovely pond. The property included a small tractor and equipment, so I diligently maintained the fields and started a modest garden. Despite still dating and being considered an eligible bachelor in my rural community, I hadn't found anyone I felt was right for a lifelong commitment. Everything changed one day when I arrived home to find 2 unexpected visitors on my porch, Anita and a young girl who looked about 8 years old and bore a striking resemblance to Anita. "Hi," Anita greeted gently, coaxing them off the porch swing. "I adore your house from what I've seen. I'm here to ask a favor, not for me, but for Annie here. She's eager to learn how to fish, and I can't think of anyone better suited to teach her. Please." Her earnest expression tugged at my heartstrings, and Annie looked up at me with hopeful eyes. I couldn't help but notice a hint of sadness behind her smile, leaving me curious about her story. Well, I figured, what do I have to lose? Did she bring her fishing rod? Anita beamed broadly. No, we weren't sure what to bring. Do you have some fishing gear around here? By the time we were ready to fish, I felt like a pack mule, carrying chairs, a cooler of drinks, and of course, fishing rods and reels. I handed Annie one of my smaller rods, perfectly sized for her. I initially put a substantial weight on the fishing line and had her cast across the field until she got the hang of it. She seemed so focused it was almost amusing. Then I baited the hook with a worm from our garden, added a cork, and showed her where to cast. With plenty of bream in the pond, I was confident she'd catch something soon. Anita was relaxing in the chair I'd brought out, smiling and sipping iced tea. She had that familiar look, and I wondered what she was plotting now. Anita, at 28, was in her prime, looking every bit of it. I chuckled inwardly at the idea of someone wearing a sundress for fishing when Annie suddenly squealed. She had hooked a fish. Judging by how the rod bent, I rushed over to guide her, with Anita right beside us cheering her on. Annie had caught a crappie, a surprise find in my pond. It was a decent size, perfect for eating. When I mentioned this, she insisted we keep it on the condition that she got to enjoy it too. Annie turned out to be a natural angler, ending up with 9 sizable fish. I asked when she wanted her fish fry. Tonight. Aren't you supposed to be heading home? I teased. She looked crestfallen, and Anita comforted her. She can stay a bit longer, especially if you're frying up her catch. The puppy dog eyes came out in full force, but Annie didn't flinch as I cleaned the fish, soaking them in lemon water, while we prepared the sides. Anita interpreted it as an opportunity to take charge of my kitchen. Soon, she had Annie perched on a chair, observing as she whipped up hush puppies and tartar sauce. Meanwhile, I took care of the claw and fired up my gas grill, roasting some corn and heating oil on the side burner. Annie watched attentively as I coated the fish in milk and egg wash before dredging them in seasoned flour. As it came time to fry them, I warned her to stay back due to the hot oil. Anita assigned her the task of setting the picnic table and pouring the tea, while she herself handled the grilled corn. It didn't take long to fry up 9 crappie into crispy, golden nuggets bursting with flavor. I made sure to show Annie how to eat around the bones. She devoured her meal like she hadn't eaten in days, 4 crappie, an ear of corn, and claw. She even polished off 6 of the hush puppies I had prepared. I couldn't help but wonder where she put it all. Anita settled Annie on the couch and tidied up while I put away our fishing gear. Sitting on the porch swing, I listened to Anita singing in the kitchen, watched the little angel sleeping on my couch, and felt tears stream down my face. This was supposed to be my life, damn it. Suddenly, I felt a tug on my sleeve. Annie had woken up and was standing in front of me. Without hesitation, I scooped her up and placed her on my lap, gently rocking back and forth. She squirmed until she found a comfortable position and quickly drifted back to sleep. I sensed her presence before I saw her. When I glanced up, even through the screen door, I could tell she was crying silently. Without a word, she turned away. 10 minutes later, she returned with 2 cups of coffee, placing them on the side table before joining me on the swing, cuddling close as she absent-mindedly played with Anita's hair. It felt comforting, a moment I cherished before breaking the silence. "Want to fill me in on what's happening?" I asked. "Remember my sister Jan? This is her daughter, Annie. Jan's husband left her 7 years ago, right after Annie was born. Despite holding a good job, Jan stayed to raise Annie alone. Then, out of nowhere, her husband returned, wanting to reconcile. Jan, engaged by then, dismissed him, declaring he'd never be Annie's father because she already had one. He persisted for a while until she got a restraining order. One night, high on drugs, he broke in and shot Jan and her fiancé Tommy while Annie slept. Annie heard the shots and called 911 herself. Social services were going to take her when we stepped in. Mom couldn't manage a young girl, so I applied and was granted legal guardianship. Now she's my little girl, Bud. I pondered her words when I learned you had stopped traveling. It clicked, the perfect solution. Annie needs a father figure, and I can't think of anyone better suited than you. She trusts you more than anyone else. Since I've had her, it amazed me when she came out here and nestled into your lap. You two look so right together, like it was meant to be. That's why I'm asking, not just for myself but for both of us. Become a part of our lives, share a piece of your heart, especially with her. I know I will never be able to bring you back completely, but if I could play even a small role in your life, it would mean a lot to me. Please, buddy." I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment when I put my arm around her shoulders, but I held her to me as tightly as I could, holding the baby on my lap. At some point, while we were hugging, we fell asleep. I woke up and saw Annie looking at me with a smile. "I need to go to the bathroom." I woke Anita, and she took Annie to the bathroom. Looking at my watch, I was surprised to see that it was almost midnight. Such a late hour undoubtedly disrupted the little girl's sleep schedule. Nita came out of the bathroom smiling. "It's too late to go home. Annie's in the tub. The tub is huge. I need some t-shirts instead of nightgowns, and you should prepare the guest bedroom. She's thrilled to be having a sleepover party." I arranged the pillows, made sure there were enough blankets, and made the bed. Annie came in wearing my shirt, which reached almost to her ankles, and asked me to tuck her in and tell her a story while she waited for Anita. "You should kiss me good night," she murmured sleepily, which I did. As soon as Anita entered, Annie beamed. I felt like a catfish caught on a hook from which I could not escape. The t-shirt fit her much better. Maybe she was preening a little when she got under the covers to cuddle Annie. I know she got her a goodnight kiss, but what about mine? The kiss was unexpectedly gentle and innocent, without a hint of anything more. When we were done, she patted my cheek. "You're still the best man I've ever known, honey." Good night. I doubted I slept more than 2 hours that night as my thoughts were occupied with the two angels in the guest bedroom. Deep down, I had to admit that I had never really stopped loving Anita. Was it worth trying again? These thoughts were spinning in my head until I finally fell asleep. I woke up to find the house empty, which left me feeling a bit disappointed. Oh well, time to face reality. I was working in my garden when they returned up the driveway. Annie bolted out of the car and ran towards me. I barely managed to catch her as she threw herself at me. We're here for the weekend. Isn't that awesome? What are we going to do? Mom says we might go to the zoo. If I behave, I'll be really good. I promise. What's that? What are you doing? I glanced up to see Nita grinning at me. Well, can we stay? You're not playing fair. Her grin widened. I'll take that as a yes. And honey, all's fair in love and war, and this ain't war. I'm going to go unpack our bags. Want to come with me, Annie? No, Uncle Bud is teaching me about gardens. All right, sweetie. I'd say don't get too dirty, but why bother? She turned and headed towards the house. I could hear her softly singing after just a few steps. It was one of her tells, she sang when she was happy. Annie stayed with me for an hour, learning how to tie tomatoes so they wouldn't touch the ground. She fetched the basket from the shed as I instructed, and I let her pick squash, tomatoes, and corn, choosing only the ripest ones and leaving the rest for later. We found a small green snake in the corn, and I showed it to her. She wanted to hold it immediately, but I explained it was wild and probably wouldn't like being handled. However, she did carry 2 turtles we discovered back to the pond. Turns out turtles love tomatoes, another reason why I kept them raised where they couldn't be eaten. Annie proudly carried the basket back to the house to show Nita what she had gathered. After washing up, Nita made us ham and cheese sandwiches with the tomatoes Annie had picked. After that, she took a bubble bath, changed into fresh clothes, and informed us that she was going to take a nap in her room. She asked us to wake her up if anything interesting happened. Not sure what could be considered interesting for an 8-year-old girl, I agreed. Anita was busy cleaning the kitchen, so I went back to the porch and sat on the swing. I liked rocking back and forth, lost in my thoughts. Eventually, she joined me, and we rocked together in comfortable silence. It took about 20 minutes before she broke the silence. I can't fix what happened, buddy. I've wished countless times that I could. You meant everything to me, and you have no idea how I felt when I thought you were cheating on me. You were my whole world, and then suddenly you weren't. She sighed, swayed a little more, and continued, I was a stupid, offended, and angry little girl who chose the worst possible way to react, but I'm not that girl anymore. Now I'm a grown woman with responsibilities. I've never stopped loving you, and I never will. My child deserves a father, and you are the best person for this job. I need a husband, someone strong and kind who will support me in everything. That person is you, buddy. You've always been like this, I just forgot. I know you have forgiven me, but I understand that you will never forget. Deep down, you will always doubt if I will hurt you again. Let me assure you, I won't do that. I'd rather die than hurt you like that again. I'm not asking for an answer now. Just give me a chance to prove myself. If you change your mind, I will respect your decision and leave without objection. Don't say anything until you're ready. Just think about it. I glanced at her, my face serious. In her eyes, I detected the first hint of unease. I do have something to say, she said. Go ahead and ask. What time should we head to the zoo tomorrow? Her eyes widened, then she tried to conceal a smug expression. We should leave early, darling. It's her first time, she'll want to see everything. I'll pack a picnic, the zoo food is mostly junk. Our daughter should eat healthily. What about dessert? Ice cream, if you both behave. We need to go grocery shopping when Annie wakes up, your pantry is quite bare. I was about to explain a single man's eating habits when Annie appeared, rubbing her eyes. She came straight to me and climbed onto my lap. I glanced at Nita, who smirked again. What's the plan now? We're off to buy groceries. We need supplies for our zoo trip. You're welcome to stay here. No way. He's coming with us, right, Uncle Bud? I suppose it's majority rules. Grocery shopping it is. I was thankful I'd purchased the new SUV, imagining it as a perfect family car. I settled into the leather seats. Very nice, Bud. You must be doing well, she said. It dawned on me she had no clue about my finances. My salary was decent for the area, but my fishing business brought in 4 to 6 times more annually. I manage fine. Annie, stop playing with the buttons. She was raising and lowering the windows, clearly fascinated by the electric controls. After a brief moment of guilt, she giggled. Yes, Uncle Bud. The trip to the grocery store was quite the eye-opener. Normally, I'd dash in, grab what I needed, and be out in 15 minutes. Annie filled the cart with every snack imaginable, while Nita meticulously compared prices and quality of every item. 30 minutes in, I was ready to lose my mind. Then came that smirk again. You better get used to this. There'll be times when it falls on you. Why would I ever need to shop? Because I might be in the hospital having our babies or home recovering. That statement stopped me cold in the aisle. She just giggled and kept moving. Eventually, I regained my composure and hurried to catch up. What did you just say? We'll discuss it later, honey. For now, will roast turkey club sandwiches be okay for tomorrow? Once again, I was outvoted, but I managed a small victory by slipping back to the meat counter for some T-bones for dinner. Nita grumbled about red meat until I suggested we could grill salmon instead. We were about to leave when she glanced at the large box store next to the market. Suddenly, we found ourselves inside, browsing age-appropriate car seats for Annie. Does yours need to be replaced? She asked, smirking again. Mine's fine, honey. This one's for your car. We'll use it mostly for family outings. It's newer and has more space. I was carrying it to the checkout when Annie dashed off to the side with Nita in quick pursuit. She had spotted the swing sets and was eyeing the most expensive one. Annie, sweetie, we can't afford that. Even if we could, we have nowhere to put it where we live, I said. Annie grinned, and I glimpsed Nita's smirk in her expression. It seemed she was already coaching her. Uncle Bud has space at his place. We could put it there. We could even move in with him. How convenient would that be? If she wasn't careful, that smirk would become a permanent fixture on her face, I thought. Very convenient, darling. I might consider it if he'd allow it, but it's too early. We need to show him how much we care before he'd even think about it. But you already love him. You told me so, Annie said. And I think I love him too. Can't we try? I lifted her up, passing the car seat to Nita. Sweetheart, you don't quite understand yet. It's something adults figure out. You'll understand when you're older, I promise. For now, let's just say I'll think about the swing set and see what happens, okay? It wasn't a full promise, but it was close enough. She relaxed, and I carried her out to the car. Nita held my hand on the way home. Am I pushing too hard for her? I asked. Yes, Nita replied, glancing at Annie in the mirror. She's already had a lot of changes in her life. Let's not make things more complicated, okay? When you're ready, honey. When you're ready. We grilled steaks, corn, and potatoes outside again. Nita explained that there wasn't much green space where we lived, so she didn't get outside as often as she should. Let her enjoy it, she said. That evening, shortly after sunset, I took them to the pond. I put down the lantern, cast the line, and sat Annie on my lap. 15 minutes later, she screamed loudly when her fishing rod tilted. I showed her how to do it, and she successfully caught a great catfish weighing 5 pounds or more. She was disappointed when I released him back into the water, but I assured her that we would come back and catch enough fish for dinner. she ended up catching 3 fish, and Nita caught 2 before we were done. I've caught more than you, Annie boasted as we walked back. They helped you, honey, I said. Next time I'll sit on his lap and he'll be able to help me, she replied. No, I'm sorry, Mommy, she added. No need to apologize, baby. You just need to learn how to be polite, I said. After that, it was time for a bath and bed. I read her a story from the book Nita had brought, and she quickly fell asleep. After searching the house, I found Nita in my bed. No intimacy, honey. I don't think you're ready, I said, but I want to cuddle. I missed it almost as much. Let's go to bed. It was strange to hug her again after all these years. I hugged her, and we fell asleep. A few minutes later, I thought I was going to stay up all night again, but then I felt someone pulling my nose. I woke up and saw Annie giggling. Mom says it's time for you to get up. Breakfast is ready, and we have to go soon. Hurry up. She had exhausted herself at the zoo trying to see everything at once. I carried the sleeping child back to the car. We established a routine. They would arrive on Friday and leave on Sunday. Over time, people in town became accustomed to seeing us together, recognizing us as a family. Zippy solidified our bond by inviting us over for a barbecue. Annie had several children her age to play with while the adults socialized. Later, he pulled me aside and congratulated me on reconciling with Nita. I felt sorry for her, he said. You know, we all knew how fiery her temper could be. She made a big mistake, but I think she's paid the price now. Stop procrastinating and get back with her. Neither of you has been the same since the divorce. Mama Rosa added, that child is truly fortunate, coming from such difficult circumstances, to have a loving mother and father. Do what's right for her too. Billy and June agreed. After pondering it for a couple of weeks, I decided to go with the majority decision. Luck seemed to be on my side. Normally, Nita finished work early on Fridays, but she had an emergency and called me in a panic to pick up Annie from daycare. Annie rushed into my arms, chattering excitedly and showing me off. It was a challenge to settle her into her car seat for the ride home during the drive. I took the opportunity to have a serious conversation. Her eyes widened and tears started to flow. I panicked, fearing I had misjudged her reaction, but they were tears of joy. By the time her mother arrived home, Annie was calm despite being on the verge of bursting with happiness. Mommy, come look, she called, pulling her towards the backyard where an even larger swing set awaited, dwarfing the one they had seen at the store. Look, it has swings, a clubhouse, a slide, everything. Do you like it? It's very nice, honey, and it's not even your birthday, her mother replied. Annie feigned sadness skillfully for a moment, then glanced up with a full-fledged smirk, relieved not to be the target this time. I enjoyed the spectacle. Mommy, Daddy said there's a catch. I can't have the swing set unless I live here, and since I can't live here without you, you have to live here too. Daddy said this might help you decide. She handed her a brightly wrapped box. From my hiding spot, I could see tears welling in her eyes. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped the box and opened it. A small gasp escaped her lips when she saw the ring inside, and she sank back onto a swing. Annie squirmed with excitement. Well, are you going to do it? Daddy says we have to stay here forever and I'm going to have little brothers or sisters. I'll teach them how to fish, tend a garden, everything about preschool and school. It's going to be so much fun. I stepped out from behind the tree. She spotted me, smiling through tears, then straightened up with a smirk on her face. I'll think about it, sweetie. After considering it for 36 years, raising 3 more children, and welcoming 7 grandchildren with 2 more on the way, we still haven't reached a verdict. One lesson we learned was not to panic if we couldn't find each other. I got so worried once that I threatened to confiscate her phone. I either trust you or I don't, I told her. I've decided that I do trust you, so stop calling me so often. I'm not a full-time mom, I have to work. Just do what you need to do and stop stressing before we all go crazy. Eventually, she realized my true worth and quit her job the next day, tossing away her birth control pills. For the next 2 decades, she juggled kids' schedules until they all left home. Then our adventures began, cruises, warm and exotic places, even cold and exotic ones. Finally content, we settled into a quiet life, dedicating ourselves to helping endangered children. Our home became a sanctuary for newborns to late teens, sometimes for months. Some even earned scholarships to college or trade school, and the brightest pursued 4-year degrees. Things took a turn one day when I found Anne looking nervous at home, with a little girl hiding behind her black curls, peeking out. After coaxing her out, North held her close to calm her down. The girl, aged 4, bore scars from severe abuse that haunted her for life. As I looked at her, I envisioned dance recitals, driving lessons, sports events, and dating in our future. Yes, I said, that was the entire conversation.